Hi guys, welcome back to Valorant News. Drama continuing to go down in the Valorant world. Roster changes afoot as well, but also some Scrim results leaked last night. Very interesting indeed. There's some big results in challenges as well, setting up some fascinating games to come in North America. Very much interested to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. Let's quickly move on from that. Now, 2G. Prize is gone. Now, 2G, of course, absolute nightmare. Like, they, of course, got through Ascension last year, but it's been a shambles once they've been in the VCT, quite frankly. And they confirmed that one of their players is going to be gone. Now, is this just, oh, they're making a change because they suck right before the season's about to get underway? Or is it more likely, which I think is probably the case to be fair, that Furia have just signed him? Because there was a rumour yesterday that Furia were looking to sign this guy. And now he's been released. So, yeah, maybe put 2 and 2 together and say, okay, Furia came knocking and said, all right, we want this guy, we want to replace Mozera with him, so that's maybe what they're going to do. But intrigued to your thoughts whether that's actually going to happen in the comments below. There's been lots else happening in the, certainly, South American region as well, because we've got Natank as well, and of course he's French, but he's currently on Lev after they've made the changes that they have. I'm obviously open to hear about new opportunities, any region, any role, open-minded, good vibes, hard worker, hardly motivated and wants to learn. Now, I think he probably means, let's just say well-motivated rather than hardly motivated, but all good. Like, I get what he's trying to say, and we'll see where he goes next, if anywhere, because, right now he's on the bench, probably still getting paid a bit of a salary, but that's not what these players want to do. They want to be competing for championships if they possibly can. Few other updates around the world of Valorant as well. Thought this is pretty funny. Looking at Zeltis and his kind of transformation over the last couple of years, whether it's actually helped him improve as a player or not from the version 1 days, which I'm sure you guys may remember. Happy birthday to Bang as well, turned 21 as of yesterday. As he says, fossil in esports nowadays. In esports, not necessarily. In Valorant esports, okay, to some degree, I get it, right? Of course, there's a lot of young up-and-coming players. We talked about Vitality yesterday with Sayonara, potentially bringing him in, and so many other names that have been in the conversation and will continue to be in the conversation, certainly when we talk about Envy and, Rankers, as they are currently known here over the coming minutes. So let's talk about some of these matchups, right? I mean, there were some great images as well going through, such as this one here with Marder and Boostio. I mean, I can't quite believe this is a real image, but I imagine that it may well be. So, this obviously got quite a lot of traction yesterday. I think the perspective also doesn't help, maybe, but, yeah, that was pretty sensational. And, of course, 100T play Sentinels very shortly. That's going to be their first game of everything going on in the North American side. So, Boostio's, of course, getting ready for that one. But speaking of some of the matches of yesterday, let's have a look at a couple of these. Firstly, this one is a really big deal. So, Qubit Academy were definitely the favourites in this series. Winthrop University, though, take them down 2-1. It was a close-fought affair, but yeah, Cuba going down here was a big deal, especially after they won Winthrop's pick on the Lotus. You'd think, okay, probably it's going to be all over, but no, they bounced back and they won the Fracture 13-6, and then they took the Decider 13-11, despite Cuba making a big comeback on the defensive side and looking like they were going to win it. They lost 4 in a row to not even make it to overtime in the end, and Cuba Academy dropped down to losers. And the absolute last place you want to drop down to losers in this specific game, because the loser of this game plays Envy, as in the Rankers, and we'll see that in a second. And then the other game was true as well, M80, the team that didn't necessarily need to come back. I mean, obviously they wanted to come back right into North American Valorant, but they were considering whether they even fielded a team here, to be honest, and they did. They've obviously hired people to try and put together a team that is capable this time of qualifying through Ascension, but they got absolutely slammed in this series, and Paint especially had a bonkers series on the duelist, but Monsi as well. I mean, after all the drama about signing Monsi and Jake's comment on the nepotism and all this, he's been cooking so far, and Paint was out of control. I mean, the game 1 Fracture was 13-1. That was like a really ugly one. M80 bounced back with a good win on the split, but then they got absolutely crushed on the Haven. It's pretty rare that you see a series like this that is 13-1, 13-2, but actually it's not a 2-0, that it's a 2-1. But yeah, Paint this map dropped 26 kills on the Neon, was absolutely demolition job, to be quite honest. So that's what was going on in the Americas. Now in China, let's just go to that real quick, because they had a couple of games that have, got underway, and one of which was this one from yesterday. So BLG, they got the win against XLG to kick off everything in the Chinese region. It was in the end a 2-1 performance, and 13-9 on the Icebox, and then 13-8 the other way back on the Fracture. So yeah, congrats to Billy Gaming. They get their first win on the board. Plenty more games, of course, upcoming over the next few days, but that was the starter really in the Chinese side. Notably though, going back to the Challenger side, this is the way the bracket currently looks, and what a bracket it is. I mean, look at the losers brackets here. As we all expected, Shopify Black and Winthrop in the upper finals. Like, who could have really seen that one coming? With Qubit Academy, Envy, M80 and TSM all in the losers bracket. So, only one of those teams is going to get further than the lower round 3, which is pretty insane to think about. And, I mean, Qubit versus Rankers, that's a crazy lower round 2 game. M80 TSM I wouldn't have necessarily expected either. So, yeah, tough to call. I mean, I still think the Rankers have looked like, apart from their loss to M80 before, they've still looked very, very difficult to stop. So, I think I'll still pick them to make the run until proven otherwise. But intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. And as Dapper says for Qubit, didn't feel or play like ourselves today. Hats off to Winthrop, they played really well, but not a series that they could really afford to lose in some respects given the state of that tournament bracket. Let's talk some scrims. So Furia, they were scrimming loud yesterday. This seemed like it was going to be a 14-8 in their favour. They also were scrimming G2. And again, a couple of G2 scrims were doing the rounds. And frankly, as always, G2 have been absolutely crushing everyone, not least Loud in this particular series as well. Couple of interesting ones. So Qubit was scrimming someone, and it was 19-4 to them. And Sentinels equally had an unknown scrim partner, and that was 16-7, so potentially some good scrim results. Was pretty funny, I thought, this one as well. So VCT Scrims tweets this out. Vitality down 8-14 to Galatasaray. And Vitality actually tweeted this one out publicly, and they said, VCT Scrims, whenever you try and do anything, it is Durka. But yeah, that's exactly what he does. Now, we'll get on to Durka in just a second as we close out the video, but I also wanted to quickly mention this team. So this is Xolos Laser, and these guys are I think, well, they're based in Mexico, but a lot of their players are from the northern part of South America. And these guys are pretty absurd. They have been a great scrim partner to plenty of teams, and have a look at some of their recent results. They've scrimmed Loud a lot. I mean, 10-8, 13-6. They scrimmed EG, it was 16-8. They played SRG and they 13-0'd them. They 14-4'd Lev. They 12-9 T. These are at least notable scorelines that were recorded based on what people saw. Mainly Mr. VCT Scrims. They, beaten Lev multiple times in scrims. They were 10-2 up on 100T at one point. Qubit, Loud, etc., etc. And even recently, they were 13-11 on Cloud9. Again, another team from the Americas. So, yeah, I mean, they've been absolutely cooking recently and have proven themselves to be a very competitive team down there in Tier 2, and certainly a great scrim partner. Like, these guys are pretty unreal with their consistency of excellent results in scrims. So it does show that other teams will benefit from playing them, let's say, to say the very least. Just to close up the video, wanted to share what TenZ had to say on the state of the game right now, because there's been a big discussion on this over the last few days about which teams and players are frustrated, let's say Safe and Durka, for example, and even TenZ, about the way that Valorant currently is. And there's been lots of talk about the level of utility, right? Because as TenZ is about to describe, the more utility you have, the slower the game has to play because the utility is expended. And TenZ has various solutions he thinks should be tried to reduce that. It can be done, whether you agree or disagree, it's a question mark, but I definitely think at a pro level, these guys are making fair points as it stands. Just to mention as we close out the video, I'm flying to Dallas for quite some time for a Call of Duty event which is upcoming. I fly today, so the videos on the Valorant side will still be here when I can make them, but they will likely be arriving later in the day than normal, because right now I make them on a UK time zone, whereas when I'm making them on a Dallas time zone, I'm not getting up at 2 in the morning. So, like, that's how it's going to be. But very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.
Getting back to Valo after fast-paced hero shooters, but yeah. Like, Valo is very, slow pace. Any game that has abundance of utility, the more utility, the slower it becomes. And Valorant has literally all the utility in the world. In my personal opinion, what they should do is they should increase cooldowns for regen abilities, or, I don't know, some abilities are used, 3 times around. I feel like max, maybe, 2 breach stuns around instead of 3. It should feel more impactful, or it should feel like you're actually getting value out of baiting enemies' utility sometimes, but then they just have it on recharge. So it can feel unrewarding in that way, and that's what also makes the game like very slow paced. But I also believe that they should increase ult orbs a lot. And when I mean a lot is like, I mean ult orbs should be at, for the majority of like utility characters, they should be at like 10 points, in my honest opinion. And then you would have less frequent rounds where there's 5 ults in a round and people are just mashing the buttons. The ults come out way too fast, way too frequently. And that's what causes like the very chaotic, but like not really enjoyable gameplay. Because realistically, if the enemy has 4 ults, you just can't win the round. It's really, really hard and you need like a legit miracle to win the round. And I feel like for a tactical shooter, there's nothing tactical about just saving your ultimates and using them all at the same time, pressing buttons, and your opponents have absolutely 0 chance of doing anything against you. Rated with more than 6 orbs would be... I think it's dependent on the ults, right? So, for an example, Breach ult should be a lot. Brim ult should be a lot. Asher ult should be a lot. Chamber ults can be lower. Like, not lower than what it is, but like, it can stay how it is. So, stuff like that. So, I think you gotta treat it by case. Like, for an example, Omen. Like, I think Omen's is good at a 7 point. But in my honest opinion, Viper should be at a 10 point. Harbor should be at a high point as well. Any, like, of these area of effect skull ultimates, they should be less frequent to get. It's kind of similar how like when you're playing Overwatch, like a tank will generally generate charge a lot slower than support, and I guess this is true to rivals, but like support and DPS ults come out more frequently. So these like really big round or fight winning ultimates, like they should be on a lot higher of a charge, so they come out less frequently. 12 orbs for Teo and Harbor is fair. I don't think 12. I think like 10, or something to do with the way that you collect ult orbs. Maybe ult orbs should be just collected only through orbs and kills and deaths or something, or just kills. I'm not too sure. I feel like it's way too easy to generate ult orbs in this game. All these like pro teams are just like orb max and so you see like so many ults in a game.